Joining us now from London is the host of the Spectator Australia's Fire at Will podcast, Will Kingston. Will, great to see you again. As an Aussie, I have to get your thoughts on this. UFC boss Dana White has unleashed on the Australian media, and it comes a day after the Sydney Morning Herald editor Bevan Shields wrote a piece calling Dana White an enabler of hate. He labelled one of the most popular sports in the world gross, and he claimed that people in New South Wales just wouldn't support the state government's partnership with the UFC, even though it puts Sydney on the world stage and brings in millions of dollars through tourism. Well, Dana White has hit out at Sydney Morning Herald journalist Bevan Shields, and he didn't hold back on his thoughts on Australia's media. Take a listen.
Listen, for a place that is so tough and the people, everything on land and the water can kill you. You have the biggest I've ever seen in the media in my life. I saw a story where a guy was like, I saw Dana do a podcast with the premier and it physically made me sick. Holy you guys have to have the biggest of all time in the media here. I thought we had weak media. You guys win hands down.
Will, unfortunately for us, I think Dana's right. What do you think?
Well, Dana, please don't lump Sky News in with the Sydney Morning Herald. I think they are very, very different beasts. But the interesting thing there, and I think this doesn't just apply to the media, it applies to the perceptions that Americans and the rest of the world have of Australia, in that they come to this country now and they still expect to have that old view of Australia, rugged individualists, anti-authoritarian, irreverent, think Paul Hogan type of thing. Mm. And you get to Australia today, and so often what you are presented with is the exact opposite of that now. Woke ideology has very much infiltrated our media along with all of our other institutions. I think we are now slower to get that pushback against wokeism compared to what we're seeing in the US. And I think you get people like Dana White who actually are genuinely surprised at what they see in Australia. And I think this is a wake-up call. We need to actually say, how do we actually get back to that old view of Australia, which we can all in our minds think about, and push against what I think we all agree, particularly since COVID, is a very, very different and I think quite a troubling national identity that unfortunately we have reformulated for ourselves?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think Australia was on the world stage for all the wrong reasons during COVID. I think people right around the world were looking at places like Sydney and Melbourne and looking at the way we had these unbelievable long lockdowns and essentially no freedom of speech and a media that was very one-sided and was censoring all sorts of things. But speaking about the media, let's turn our attention to what's happening in the US, and the unedited footage from the CBS interview with Kamala Harris has been revealed, and it is so embarrassing for CBS and for Kamala Harris, as the answers were clearly edited to make it sound like Kamala Harris was capable of stringing a sentence together, which was certainly not the case. Here's what went to air, and here's the edited version.
But it seems that Prime Minister Netanyahu is not listening.
Well, Bill, the work that we have done has resulted in a number of movements in that region by Israel that were very much prompted by or a result of many things, including our advocacy for what needs to happen in the region.
But it seems that Prime Minister Netanyahu is not listening.
We're not going to stop pursuing what is necessary for the United States to be clear about where we stand on the need for this war to end.
Well, this isn't the only clip that surfaced, which is causing concern.
You're talking about how you're going to pay for it. So how are you going to convince a divided Congress that what you say, your plans, are something that they should all agree to and provide to the American people when they've shown no inclination to do that up to this point?
Is that what you needed?
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. 30 seconds of silence, please, for room time. Cameras are off.
How will you?
It's going to be taxes. It's going to be literally, if the economists.
And you can hear in her answer there, she was suggesting raising taxes, yet that didn't make the final cut. Now, Donald Trump has amended his lawsuit against CBS, doubling the amount that he claims he's owed for deceptive editing of a Kamala Harris interview from $10 billion to $20 billion. Look, I keep saying this, but no wonder people don't watch the mainstream media anymore.
Yeah, that's exactly right. There's two things here. There's the lawsuit, and then there's the matter of journalistic integrity. Any self-respecting journalist who watches that will know that that is a complete ethical breach. I understand that sometimes with an interview, you need to cut it down to fit into a particular time slot, but you need to maintain the same core message and the same tone from the interviewee. So you may cut out a complete question, for example. What they've done there is they've changed how she comes across. They've made her sound more confident. They've made her sound more precise. And the only test that you really need to have in your mind is, would they have given Donald Trump the same luxury? And the answer is, of course they wouldn't, which leads you to believe there is a very clear ideological agenda. And Gab, you're exactly right. Like, as a result of that, when people see this, they go, well, why should we trust this rubbish? Now, on the lawsuit itself, I actually don't think Donald Trump needs to be getting involved in this sort of stuff. For starters, everything I've been told is it's very unlikely he's going to win. The First Amendment in the US is particularly strong, and it generally precludes these types of lawsuits. CBS is digging its own grave. Their ratings are tanking. People will see this and they'll just lose more and more trust. He doesn't need to get involved in these skirmishes. I think he just needs to let nature take its course and let this channel deservedly die a natural death.